we all watched, presumably, we all watched or rewatched later there was a live stream about Barbie and the marketing campaign behind it, and how basically the team put the whole thing together, the considerations they put into their strategy, how they kind of came up with this idea, and how they made it go, I mean, beyond viral. We just talked about how super hyped the movie was, and how much of a success it was. I think it was what, like $1 billion that was generated in value and revenue over the first month or something. So they talked about that. They talked about the marketing side of it, which is what we're interested in, and the digital side of it, which was also interesting, and a little bit of a few other tidbits. So what we wanted to do was to have a conversation about it.
So for me, hearing about the target audience was
Yes.
like, what? Because typically you'd be expecting that it's Barbie, the people that they're trying to capture are women and girls. That's what you'd be expecting. But for them to say that they're actually looking at under 25s, both girls and boys, and that they were able to actually activate that audience quite well was actually quite fascinating for me. You guys?
Same thing. I think it was more specifically the way because they said something which shocked me. It was 40% of Joker's audience was Barbie's audience. Yeah, and I was like, well, how? First of all, who in their right minds is thinking, oh, okay, we're about to market Barbie. What movie does this remind you of? Joker. Like, that part I would just genuinely didn't think about it. And then the second thing they'd said was the how you speak, like how they were speaking to men, and how intentional it was in like everything they were doing to always so that was interesting to me, that side of like not just looking at the target audience. It's something which we say all the time, but I don't think we practice as much. That you want to have a very clear persona and understand exactly what they're thinking and where they're going and what they're doing, and then based on that behavior is where you place your marketing. So the choice to like use tabletops as marketing because you know that they're going to be walking past these cafes and that they're going to take pictures of their meals, and
or how they had the AI generator whereby you can create personalities, your Barbie personality, to create that connection with the Barbie. I also found the target audience being very interesting. And it wasn't about, because I feel like most brands, when they're thinking about a target audience and they're thinking about a younger target audience, they think about the platform where they want to reach them on. But for this one, it felt like their target audience was more about how do we create a Barbie culture with this specific target audience rather than where are they. So I found that to be also quite interesting. It shows one, they did their research on the success of the Joker movie and what target audience worked for them and can it work. It felt like it was also like a risk for them to use the same target audience that was for another movie. But I think because they talk about two of their main pillars being fun and expected, which if you look at who their target audience was, it's expected for it to be as creative and colorful as their marketing was.
I think the interesting bit was also just that plug-in, that the thing that they were looking to plug into fundamentally was just pop culture, and how that actually has driven the marketing for the brand, and it like whether we wanted to or not, as in like case study right here, he was aware about the Barbie movie and all of that stuff. So that's just a bit
I mean,
gendered, but here we are.
Unfortunately, in this specific case, I'm typical because I genuinely have no like there's no intersection between my life and Barbie. So even with my daughter, not really, because she's not at that age yet. She's still like, she just turned 3. I saw it reach her. So I saw her talking about Barbie and not knowing what she's talking about. And then I also saw the ecosystem change around it. And that was one of the things I was going to say about Surprise, was in how they targeted. It wasn't just marketing material. In fact, the marketing side of it, as we know it, is fairly small in terms of what they did. A lot of it was just content. because they renewed their contracts with Netflix for the Barbie animated stuff. They started putting a lot of the shows that used to be up on different networks all over the place. They were partnering with whole networks and organizations to be able to kind of be more present in more places. And then the one that I guess sealed it for me was the music.
That was dope. And and we're seeing a lot more I don't know what I'd say, especially series and movies, guys in film riding on that. Because, well, if you're looking at getting people on board, music is where it's at. And also because music has really infiltrated the social space. Like any trend that needs to pick up, for example, on TikTok, there's always a music element that has to be tied in with it. But when you mentioned that that when they put up like they renewed their contracts with like Netflix and whatever, it was actually, this is when it's hitting me, because when there were a lot more of the Barbie movies that my nieces and nephews were watching recently, but I've only connected that right now. I'm just like, okay, fine, because they could go through movie, and I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like it did, a lot of those things had disappeared, and then all of a sudden it was just, if you search for Paw Patrol somewhere on the second row,
yeah,
just like
I know, right?
Barbie stuff. Like, what is going on? And that's on the kids side. Sorry, one day soon. One day soon. But the idea, I think, of that being present everywhere, and it became difficult to avoid, to the point where it wasn't just hype. It wasn't like, oh look, big billboards all over the place. It was genuinely
all over what place, but anyway.
That's what I'm saying. It's like in our case, I guess. In our case in Kenya, so it's not like it was everywhere, right?
You guys remember when they were talking about how they were adapting the localization element for the poster? There was the US poster, and then how the French did their poster. And it was just like, from a creative standpoint, you're just like, this goes against everything that you're hiding, like a main star's face, and it still worked, and it created so many conversations around it. Like, it just made me wonder, like, how many, the struggle that's always there for brands to just move the needle a bit further. Like, you don't have to do whatever is conventional. How can you disrupt and take a bit of a risk? And
because I think
often falls flat on our faces.
In terms of like takeaways, that was probably my biggest one. Is when you go in on an audience, go all in. There's no point in like
half-assing it.
Yeah, because
can we say that? But anyway, here we are.
Well, I imagine it's one cheek. But anyway, so no, but honestly, like, there's genuinely no point in half-assing it. If you're going to speak to these people, and this is how you speak to these people, then don't if this is your message and this is your message, don't sugarcoat it. Don't like try to then we sanitize it because of our brand values. If you are what you say you are, then just be it,
Maybe to segue to what surprised me the most about the Barbie, in addition to what you're talking about, I feel like they almost had no choice to go all out because of the nostalgia aspect of a Barbie doll, their target audience, and what that movie should be. So them going all out was one. My takeaway, the surprise thing, was how the emotional connection they created with the Barbie, and making sure that nostalgia was the pull for the brand and the audience that they are working with.
No, but I mean, like, they also went the other way of I think even my perception of the dolls was there were always these little prim, proper little princessy. I mean, a lot of the Barbies were just themed, the Barbie dolls were just themed around like princesses and stuff, right? The idea behind who Barbie was versus what they were doing this time around, there was a bit of a difference, because like my thinking is they would have almost Disney-fied it, where Disney does these sanitized and clean and Cinderella type things, but the soundtrack had Nicki Minaj going full Nicki Minaj. It wasn't like she was, oh, don't curse. No, she said what she said, and then you move on from it. You know what I mean? It had people being themselves, and even the choice of artists, like you have the Billie Eilishes and so on and so forth. You have blatantly all these like mad empowerment anthems, and then the Ken segment was just him saying, what, I'm just a
Ken.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all he got out of this whole music thing. His bit was, I'm just a Ken. Like they went, when I say they went all out, I feel like it was almost a repositioning. Like they said, okay, we're gonna tap that nostalgia. We know what you think, good, bad, and otherwise. We know there's like value
Perception
there.
of what.
And there's an expectation, but we want to hit unexpected. We want to hit
fun.
Yeah, so they did both.
But also, what was really dope to hear was them saying that this wouldn't have happened if they didn't trust the creative direction, because and well, that's not ever happened, but here we are.
It happened once. I remember that day. It was very nice.
Yeah, but it was like really good to hear, because I feel like if they had gone the other direction of what is typically expected of Barbie, wouldn't be here having this conversation.
No.
They were able to move that needle, and that was the type of content that actually created the conversations, the willingness to engage, the willingness, the intent, even willingness to actually watch it, whether they found it great or not. Who knows?
I think the thing, kind of just going towards the takeaway again, the thing that I will find a way to communicate to clients with this is how Mattel understood that the story and the marketing and all of this versus the product and the sales should not be treated as the same thing. Because they, from what I understand, I haven't watched the movie. I will. But from what I understand, they slam Mattel in the movie. They actually like talk not like directly positively about them. They're not trying to push the product to you from my understanding. They focused on a story about her, right? And in doing that, even when a brand goes to a studio and says, here's, and it's not the budget you see here. This is several $100 million. Go create a movie about my flagship product at a time when we are not selling the most. For a brand to be able to understand that the importance here is to focus on the story and making sure
the product.
Exactly. Let's focus on making this story successful rather than focus on the product, and the success will follow. You know what I mean? If success is the objective, it doesn't mean, well, success, but also please follow my brand guidelines. Barbie does not curse.
It's interesting you say that, because when I was like looking into the different things that they were talking about, someone was talking about the origin of the Barbie and how it came up, and there was like a disagreement in terms of why this lady decided to do an adult doll as opposed to a baby doll, and how she wanted the Barbie to be communicated is to symbolize different aspects of women that are not caregiver. So going back to that, I lost my trail of thought, but there's something you said around
what, like the sanitized image or the feminist thing?
Yes.
I mean,
from the beginning, like the whole inception of the Barbie, it was also not an agreed.
There's two things that have made me want to watch that movie. First is when you said that, you're like, oh, there's an origin story that we don't know about.
Yes.
That kind of made me go, I wonder what the origin story is. If it's in the first 10 minutes of the movie, that's really unfortunate, because then I'll stop there. But the second bit was just that one. I think I mentioned this earlier, but that one clip of like a mugshot of Barbie.
Yeah.
It's literally a short clip, and it's a social media post they put up. It was literally just one clip of like she slapped or she punched Ken, and then the next frame was just like mugshot. That alone made me say, whatever this is, I'm really curious. Like, I'm just curious, and I think going to that idea of like, how do you honor this legacy, but then like find a way to like draw a connection. I feel like the connection comes in if the origin story ties to this rebellious attitude, then it makes sense. Yes. If it's like, oh yeah, let's veer away from the stereotype of like, if it's a doll, then it's a mom, and if it's not a mom, then it's a girl, and if it's not a girl, then it's a fake. Then maybe there's like some sort of real message here. Sure. But again, I still have a lot of issues as a feminist, Africanist type East person.
And I think when I said, of course, you wouldn't have Nori watch the whatever. It's because of how Zayn has been very intentional in terms of the stories that she wants Nuri to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I don't think Barbie will be one of it. But that's not in relation to this. But yeah.
Yes. One of the other things that I really liked is the fact that they said, so the under 25s were their core audience, but when they converted, they moved to the next. So they realized when they converted, they were able to convert the under 25, then they realized the women, I think, was it like 35 or something, it wasn't picking up too much, so they moved to that next audience. It's that ability for a client to be able to not to get stuck on your primary audience. The fact that they always had the data at the back of their minds that we're trying to work on awareness and intent to watch. So we are getting 20. When we look at the data, we've hit our under 25s. They're coming in by the droves. I think by the first week they had 52% of them being under 25. Then okay, fine, we've gotten that. Now next audience, keep it moving. Yeah.
No, and that was actually something. Two things you mentioned there. The first is that data-driven side of things, because really early on, like they start, okay, so this is what we're trying to do, and they're like, before we talk about anything, and they go through this like research papers of this is moviegoers, and like by the time they got to the conclusions,
the movie differentiation aspect as
well. The differentiation, like this is how, these are the 6 elements you want to consider, and this is this and this. By the time they got to, we're trying to talk to this person, they've already done so much insight and so much they have so much data that they know primary, secondary, tertiary, like all the audiences and the sequence in which it's going to happen. So it's literally milestones, like the way you'd set up your campaign, so that once you hit goal 1, this is going to carry itself, go to goal 2, that carries itself, go to, and so on and so forth. So when they were doing the audience thing, I noticed that on 2 levels, because they glossed past it, but it was pretty interesting. I noticed it first when they said the demographic thing, but the second was when they talked about different markets. So they were like, we launched in France with this tweet, but when we went to the States, we did this one. Yeah. Because they realized we've reached a stage where that thing they put in France was on Hollywood Reporter the next day. So the next day, the thing they wanted to do to continue elevating this surprise was to create a separate announcement for the US, so that they know that these things kind of feed specific audiences, and there's intersections that happen, and they played it on a global level, they played it on a demographic level, and it was super well coordinated, like between the different teams. So I mean that's that agility, but then also that freedom to be able to make those decisions. I know that's not a thing where they sat down with the client and said,
we shall
we're going to rework the post for tomorrow last minute. No, that's 100% the agency was told, here's your target, cheers. And then they said, this is how we're going to hit the target, and this is how we're going to spend. And it's one of those things that I guess you have to have the buy-in, but then you also have to have the freedom to act.
But also, even just from like whether it's an agency point of view or a marketing point of view, having that foresight, that anticipating that like things may be picked up, obviously right now because of the digital age, things may be picked up. How do you adapt accordingly along the way?
Because I think even in the webinar they didn't talk about the things that didn't work. But then I think one of them said it was almost chance.
But and he kept on saying that
it was that constant what's working, what's not. So we saw
what worked.
But there was definitely a dedicated team for, okay, this is not working. When you move to the next stage, this is a learning from this stage. So I like the fact that for clients and for brands, it should be, in as much as yes, you have this set goal, continue to reinvent and don't put yourself in a box.
What didn't work for you?
So these guys were doing all this, Margot and Ryan Gosling were doing all these trips across the world and to different markets. And I'm just like, okay, representation, Africa, friends. So me, I'll just borrow from what has happened before. You guys, Bridgerton got African artists to do music. did a launch in, well, it's as best as we could get at that time and point. But but like there's been an intentionality, and I think that's part of the conversations that have been taking place about representation for Barbie the product, especially when this Barbie the movie came out. And I know that you guys saw the South Sudan Barbie that just
I saw that.
So it was just a hot mess, but like they could have done more. There's so much more potential for the African market.
I think with how people are jumping on the Barbie trend, I saw that more as compared to it being in the movie or even in the marketing, just because I think there was a creator who did an African side of Barbie. So yes, in terms of presentation, that's good. I saw Isare and I expected a
bit more. Just give us a little bit more.
All right, okay.
Yeah, honestly, that part missed me completely, and I think that's again, I'm 100% on representation for the things that I feel like would have been important. I think there's that, and then the second thing is, through all of this, I feel like it just ended up still being. It felt shy of being a full movement. Like it felt shy of carrying a message bigger than like it had the hype, it had attention, it had people saying and like a lot of like white girl empowerment, and I mean that not in like a racist way, but that we saw a lot of women speaking up, but not representative women speaking up, and then it just turned into like success. And then success, and then just became like a money thing, and it lost the opportunity to say, okay,
to be culturally ingrained as opposed to just pop culture. Yeah,
because like you have movies, and some of them are not deserving of it. So like Black Panther is not deserving of anything, because let's be real,
the war is movie coming upon you. Said I'm just saying a statement. You know this.
Okay, hold on. In 2 seconds. If Black Panther were to be culturally relevant, it would have focused on the fights that Africans are actually supposed to be having, especially in that context, right? If there was a Wakanda, what is the first thing that you start doing? Fight all the internal battles, your colonialisms, and so on and so forth. Instead,
and feed people.
And feed people, and like give all these other Africans the technology that you have, since you're the most advanced. What did they do instead? They fought each other. Technically, story-wise, it is not the empowerment story, but culturally, it turned into all these people with melanated skin going Wakanda forever. Like there was an identity carried beyond the movie in the marketing.
I feel like I didn't have the expectation for representation just because Barbie as a doll was never for us.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. This is kind of what I mean. It's like if they wanted to really go all in on the whole unexpected side of it and fun side of it, you need to engage with the cultures that were neglected and the identities that were neglected beyond just getting Nicki Minaj to do one song. Like realistically, yes, she has carried that Barbie brand for you through her own music and given you that access, but then what have you done then outside of engaging her? You know what I mean? Like how do you take that step further outside of just getting like placeholders and people here? Like do something. If they did something here, if they actually ran like an African side to this campaign, it would have been interesting. My theory is that they probably had it in the plans and then they saw what happened with Little Mermaid. And they were like
no. Or the other side, you should be like, you know, like you have a fighter brand, like we're the fighter audience.
Yeah.
Like you're important, but not that important. You're not going to bring us that much money, so it's fine. It's like we're just gonna focus on the guys who are gonna give us that money, but we're gonna change the world, bro. They just don't know it yet.
My biggest takeaway being the partnership.
What partnership?
Is
about
the different partnerships and how intentional the brands that came on board was. And I feel like it was more an extension of it was an extension beyond the Barbie movie. If I bought the shoes, if I bought the makeup, I still have that Barbie culture still beyond the movie. So for the partnerships, I was like, oh wow. And I don't think they went looking for these brands.
No,
The brands liked the messaging, they liked how everything was being done, and they
and then they held all of them at bay and said, we are going to launch simultaneously. That part was really cool because they coordinated. They didn't just like say, oh cool, we have this really big partnership here, let's go live with this now. They said, okay, everything has to be in order, everything has to follow us. So everyone was put on a timeline. I liked how they managed that.
You know what, I look forward to times when we can just tell clients to just chill. Just chill. Timing is everything, and that's one of the things that these guys kept on saying. When content is released, when whatever is published, when whatever partnership is announced, timing is everything, because it also determines whether something is going to have a full cycle or not, and whether it's going to be picked up. And
the one thing I meant to say on that same, not just the timing, but then also the choice of content, because then did you notice how underproduced some of those things were? Like the teaser was literally just a set photo. There was no poster, there was no like, oh, here's a gif of something or some fancy animation or coming soon. Nothing. It was literally just like a set photo of Ryan Gosling, and it was carefully selected and everything. But then that idea of let's start with this and that's it, and put it on a tweet, and there we go.
And let's get conversation started with that, and then see how to move to the next.
Yeah, because then the minute what they did was, instead of giving the world, oh, here's a meal, eat it, they said, here's an ingredient, create your own thing, and then everybody turned it into their own thing. So that was smart.
What's the name they gave for what you're talking about that I liked was the breadcrumb strategy.
Yes, like, that breadcrumb strategy. That's what it was.
All the way.
Yeah.
So
just mice.